Hey, Bernardo Wealth Extended family. Welcome to 2024. Reaching out today, let's talk about what happened in 2023, some observations there, and then let's look forward through this year and just kind of talk through some things we think we see out on the horizon. So 2023, I think the best way to talk about 23 is that there's an old saying, and my dad used to talk about this all the time back in the day: the market climbs a wall of worry. And looking back, I think our whole team here, maybe yourself, of the same mindset that last year in 2023, everyone was kind of worried, not really feeling like there was great conviction in the markets for positive returns, and yet we saw mid 20% rates of return in the equity markets. And if we really think about it, it makes a good amount of sense. The market is always looking forward 6, 8, 12, 18 months in the future, and today pricing that in as to what it sees out into the future. So in 2022, right, let's go one more year prior to 23. In 2022, we had a very bad year in the market. The general consensus was inflation's running out of control and the Fed's going to start to raise interest rates. The market was looking ahead and pricing in what was to come in an inflationary environment and a higher rate environment. We get to 2023, data's hitting us, showing inflation's out of control. We're also getting the Fed to move interest rates up very aggressively through the course of the year. But that was already priced in 2022, and 23 was looking ahead, almost to 2024. And so I think that was, the response of the markets. I think that's why we saw such a good run up last year. And so through conversations throughout the course of the year, a lot of worry was in the market. And historically, there isn't a lot of euphoria when markets are moving up. When the euphoria comes, it's usually time to say, hey, this thing's way overbought, and it's time to start to work our way out. Usually at those low points in the markets, there is worry. So that's the rearview mirror. I think that concept is an important one to think about. It's not the data that we're receiving today that tells us what happened in the rearview mirror that the market's worried about. The market is expecting and forecasting data for the future. So 2024, what's on tap here? I think the biggest thing that we're all looking at is the election, right? And talk about the market climbing a wall of worry. I know that's on a lot of people's minds. There's a lot going on. I'm not here to get into the politics of that, but let's talk about the market. I think that it's a common misconception that markets are really bad in election years. The facts are the opposite. The average rate of return in an election year over the last 30, 40 years is close to 11%. Historical returns in the S&P 500 are just below 10%. And so again, just statistically speaking, I'm not saying this is going to come true. There have been negative years in election years, but those are the averages. And so I think that's an important part to pay attention to. A lot of dynamics are happening, right? The party that's in office that's looking to get reelected, they have a certain motivation to run on a positive economy, on a lower interest rate environment. And so I think as those factors come, that's, albeit put the politics aside, for us as investors, that's positive. Lower interest rates should drive more growth. So I think that's a big piece of what we're looking at, and a lot of the conversations we're paying attention to, with clients and with the economists we follow. I think dovetailing into that, interest rates, we expect them to start to come down later this year. Everyone's waiting with bated breath to hear what the Fed has to say. And when will they kind of put out there and say, we expect this to be our first drop in rates. Anytime you get a drop in rates, right, money supply is easier to access and cheaper. I also think that will solidify and open capital markets back up. What are capital markets? Capital markets are M&A activity. Capital markets are like banking activity. A lot of banks have slowed down lending, just concerned about the business environment, concerned about higher rates. Well, if we're plateauing on higher rates and see a path to start to come down, that's confidence. Organizations can plan and say, all right, if rates today are 8% to borrow and we know they're not going meaningfully higher, now we can forecast and do predictions on modeling of how transactions would look, on how lending would look, etc. So I think that's really what's going to be consequential this year in the market. Having said that, we certainly have no idea how the market's going to move this year, so we stay committed to planning and making sure our risk level is right at all times. And so that's really, where we think things stand right now. So as always, please reach out with questions. We appreciate the trust you have in our team, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you.